The idea of today's presentation is to give you a background and overview of what are the different services and products which we have on Google Cloud, which are tailored for healthcare. Google has been making a lot of investment into healthcare, and the idea today is to give you overview of those investments and how we are doing with some of our customers. Healthcare has been a top priority for Google for many years. We have made it a part of our mission to work with organizations like yours to expand access to quality care and improve health outcomes in communities around the world. To that end, we have made investments to unlock the value of data to better provide insights, outcomes, access, and solutions to address the most pressing challenges in healthcare. The result has been leading edge solutions such as our healthcare API and many industry firsts in machine learning and AI. And I'm going to touch upon the healthcare API and also the healthcare data engine in my later slides, which is going to give you a flavor of what I'm talking about. Moving on to the next slide, if you look at the Alphabet has made significant investment in healthcare with 57 operating investments. Important to note, these are Alphabet investments and not companies. Google Health, Worley Ventures, etc. Google Cloud is world-class in health innovation with an unparalleled portfolio of assets spanning life sciences, health plans, and providers. To give you guys an example, Google was the first partner in the NIH STRIDES partnership to advance biomedical research. We hold 6 times more patents than compared to Amazon. We also provide a number of first-to-market healthcare-specific tools and services, such as the healthcare API and deep variant genome analysis. Moving on to the next slide, this slide covers a little bit about what we have done with some of our partners and customers. The first one which I wanted to highlight was the collaboration which we did with HCA Healthcare. SADA, which is one of the premier partners for Google Cloud, collaborated with HCA Healthcare to lead the National Response Portal, which was running on Google Cloud, to bring data together to combat the spread of COVID-19. This was actually a very successful initiative which was done with HCA Healthcare, and there is a case study around it. I'll share the link for that case study with Ron, who can then share it with the audience as well. But I think it's important when you guys go through the case study to get an idea of what kind of scale we were able to achieve in a short amount of time to combat the spread of COVID-19 in collaboration with HCA Healthcare. The second one I wanted to highlight was with Kaggle. Kaggle is the world's largest community of data scientists. It is hosting multiple data science challenges focused on helping the medical community to better understand COVID-19, including natural language processing, which was commissioned by the White House. So we were able to work with Kaggle to help them improve and help them get to that scale so that they can help do that research, which can then help to stop the spread of COVID-19 as well. The other one which I wanted to highlight as part of this was with Nest. Nest, which is another product of Google. We worked with Mount Sinai Health System to use Google Nest for video and audio technologies to monitor some of the critically ill patients with COVID-19. Given with COVID-19, we saw an increase in telehealth, and we wanted to come up with a way along with our customers so that they could monitor their patients in the most secure manner. And using Nest, we were able to achieve that. So the idea of why I wanted to share some of these examples with you was to give you the scale which we have at Google Cloud with the different variety of services we have across the Alphabet umbrella, and bringing that one Google Cloud approach so that we can help solve some of the unique use cases you might have at your organization. Moving on to the next slide, one of the questions which we kind of face almost on a daily basis talking to customers like yourselves is why choose Google Cloud, right? I mean, with so many options out there, what is the uniqueness about Google Cloud? And I wanted to touch upon this using some of the terminology which is shown in this slide and going a little bit deeper into that. The first one highlighted in the slide is the healthcare specific security and compliance. Now, knowing that we are part of healthcare, security is one of the main requirements, especially around compliance with HIPAA. So what we have done at Google Cloud is that we have layered healthcare specific security and compliance solutions on top of Google Cloud's best in class security infrastructure. So Google Cloud is always treating all of your data as PHI, and the products are HIPAA enabled at no extra cost. So we do have guidance. So we do have the HIPAA compliance, and then we do have guidance around how do you design your services which you want to run on Google Cloud so that you're being HIPAA compliant. So we help you do that. The second reason why you want to choose Google Cloud is because of the technology differentiation. We have built a healthcare specific products and solutions which are designed to solve your unique industry challenges. We learn from our deep relationships with the most innovative healthcare organizations to create products and solutions that speak healthcare, data formats, promote data interoperability, and have healthcare security and compliance built into them. The other biggest advantage of working with Google Cloud is the industry leading AI and ML. We embed our advanced artificial intelligence and machine learning capabilities to help you gain insights from clinical data, accelerate research, and provide seamless patient and customer experience. We also support large cross-function team of healthcare experts, including the largest healthcare engineering teams of any healthcare provider. Our teams are committed to working to advance the field of technology in healthcare, resulting in over 100 health and bioscience research publications. Again, using the scope and the breadth and the scale of Google Cloud, along with the different investments we have with Alphabet, we believe we have the right solutions and services and the teams which can help organizations like yourself in order to help those unique use cases and provide better patient care depending upon what that use case could be. And what we are doing as at Google Cloud is we are using all of the technology we have using industry leading AI and ML and helping you solve some of those biggest challenges. I have an example later on in my slide, which is going to talk about how we helped Emory predict sepsis and how we were able to get to a point where we were doing accurate sepsis prediction along with Emory. Any questions so far? I don't see any questions in the chat, but any questions anybody would like to ask?
I don't see any, and I'll keep monitoring it, all right? A lot of good information to take in.
Okay, sounds good. Moving on to the next slide. Again, talking about security and keeping security in everything what we do, there are four main things or four main pillars which we think about when we are talking about security at Google Cloud, and specifically when focusing on healthcare. The first one being ownership. Google Cloud is explicit in its commitment to our customers. You always own your data, and we will never use it for any purposes other than those necessary to fulfill our contractual and legal obligations. Obviously, when we start working with you and you are interested in running your workloads on Google Cloud or are interested to do some POCs or run some pilots on Google Cloud, we would work with you in order to get to a BAA. And once a BAA has been executed between our two organizations, we would then be bringing in your data onto Google Cloud, depending upon the use case, and help you create those unique solutions which can then help your customers. Again, the first umbrella or the first pillar I wanted to touch upon was on ownership. The second one is protection. We provide protection from threats through a secure foundation. Our core infrastructure is designed, built, and operated with security in mind. The biggest takeaway for this thing is that whatever infrastructure Google Cloud runs, we manufacture our own infrastructure in the data centers, and we have security built in right from the infrastructure to the different aspects of the application stack, right? So if you start thinking about what the underlying infrastructure is going to be, what is the supported network, what is the storage, and then when you deploy your applications on top of it, we are going to provide you with tools and services at each of these layers so that you can create a robust and a secure application which can be then accessed by your consumers. The third pillar we want to talk about is around controls. We provide our customers with always expanding array of controls which can help meet policy, regulatory, and business objectives. Again, given in healthcare, we have to follow the HIPAA compliance. When you're dealing with PHI, PII, we have to make sure the data is encrypted at rest, the data is encrypted in transit. We have to make sure the data or the logging data which we have, we need to keep it for a certain number of years. So we give you tools and services in order to do that and help you maintain that by reducing operational complexity so that you as the customer are spending more time in enhancing your applications, improving your data models, rather than spending time in order to operationally manage some of the infrastructure like you may be doing today in an on-premises environment. And the last pillar which I wanted to touch upon was the compliance pillar. So we would provide you with capabilities, as I mentioned before. We would give you design and architecture assistance as part of our engagement with you, so that whatever infrastructure or whatever design which we are provisioning or creating for your organization would help you meet those compliance requirements. So that's part of the Google engagement model which we would do with you, depending upon the use case we are working on. Moving on to the next slide, this slide kind of covers the different security standards and the compliance which we have as part of Google Cloud. We do have a trust center on our Google Cloud website where you can go and kind of download some of the SOC 1, SOC 2, and SOC 3 reports. If you're trying to read about the PCI DSS kind of compliance requirements, you can go to our trust center and read about it. What we have also done is, and we are in the process of doing that more and more, is that we are also providing recommended architecture. So for example, if you have a 3-tier web application which is running some kind of a front-end application with the SQL Server backend, for example, we will make a recommendation around how that solution should be designed, architected, and implemented on Google Cloud, so that we are helping you kind of meet those compliance requirements and helping you choose the services which are going to be HIPAA compliant. So we would work with you in order to get to that point where we are identifying the right services so that your workloads are going to be secure and compliant on Google Cloud. Another point which I wanted to make out at this point is the fact that whenever we are working with you in order to bring your workloads onto the cloud, we want to work with you first in order to create something which we call as a landing zone. A landing zone would be a place where we would create all the shared services which your organization can use and share with other business owners or lines of businesses within your organization. So when I talk about landing zone, think about setting up maybe your Active Directory infrastructure. Think about setting up your shared network topology so that you are creating your DNS once, you're creating your firewalls and your load balancers at one place, and then sharing them across the different business units or different applications across your organizations. There are multiple reasons we want to take that approach. One, obviously, being that we want to reduce your operational complexity. We want to make your operations as easy as possible. And the other thing is around the ability to control your infrastructure and your applications. We want to make you in a position or bring you to a point where you have a single policy which can be applied across your organization depending upon what compliance you're trying to achieve, right? So the idea being whatever policies we want our applications to have or our infrastructure to have, we apply it from a single place which can then go across the different application stacks or different infrastructure which you may be running on Google Cloud as part of your organization. So again, going back to the idea of reusability, reducing complex spend, and getting the compliance requirements taken care of. Moving on to the next slide. This slide is talking about what we are seeing in terms of some of the health challenges, in the healthcare vertical. So with the COVID-19, one of the things which we saw was the increase in telehealth. So we have started working with more and more providers who actually want to give their patients the ability to do secure video and audio collaboration with their physicians or providers so that they can get access to healthcare in a situation like COVID-19. So due to the COVID-19 scenario, the telehealth started picking up, and now more and more providers actually want to bring telehealth as one of their main initiatives or as one of their main offerings for their patients. So at Google Cloud, we have worked with a number of providers in order to help them do that. I have a case study which I'll share with Ron, and he can share it with you. Is around one provider who started using Google Meet in a HIPAA compliant manner so that they could use Google Meet to provide video collaborative services to their patients so that the patient can actually reach out to their physician in a secure manner and still be able to get the required amount of care depending upon depending upon where they're located and what kind of care they wanted to get from their provider. So we are enabling some of those use cases. The other important one which I wanted to call about was around something which we have as one of our services, which is called as Google Cloud CCAI, which stands for which was CCI, which actually is the ability to use artificial intelligence to help triage your calls when a patient is calling into your facility. So what that does is that using artificial intelligence, we can either depending upon the medium you're coming in from, whether you're coming in through a chat bot or you're coming in through a phone call, we can give you the ability to do some triaging on your behalf with your patient such that we are routing the calls appropriately. So for a COVID-19 kind of a situation, a customer or a patient can come in, go to that chatbot. We would have certain questions which we would ask them as part of getting information from the patient. And depending upon the responses which we are going to get from the patient or your customers, we would then be routing those calls or those requests internally to your organization. What that does is that it reduces the time required or the human intervention required by your facility or by your organization and helps you focus on things which are important for you rather than thinking about something as to how would you respond to the large volume of calls which you may be getting, asking for maybe a COVID vaccination or asking maybe for a diagnosis of COVID on a phone call. So we are enabling some of those use cases. We have a couple of case studies around it. I'll share that with Ron as well. Any questions so far?
I think, I think what people are commenting and texting me is they love the real life use cases and continually emphasizing that.
Okay, sounds good. Moving on to the next slide. So this slide is actually covering some of the real life use cases, again, like Ron just mentioned, which we have around our healthcare initiative. So I'll highlight a couple of them, which I think would bring about a good discussion or maybe would kind of start making all of you think about the different possibilities which might exist within your organization. The first one is with University of Pennsylvania, which I wanted to highlight. So University of Pennsylvania uses contact center AI, which is the CCAI I just spoke about, to help answer common questions and symptoms so that they can help triage those calls. Again, going back to the example which I just mentioned. What this has done for University of Pennsylvania is that it has helped them to make sure that the patients which are coming to them are getting the highest possible care in the shortest amount of time. Previously, before using contact center AI, it was dependent that a patient would actually wait for a certain amount of time on the phone call, waiting for a human to actually respond to it. And then whoever actually is responding to that patient has to go through an internal FAQ or a wiki so that they can ask the appropriate questions. And then whatever the patient or the customer is responding, you are carrying out that conversation. So basically what that does is it takes a lot of time because there is a lot of manual intervention which is required. With contact center AI, the ability to use AI and the ability to use historic conversations, we are actually enabling those conversations to be done in a short amount of time while keeping the context in mind, right? I think that's the most important thing. Because when you think about a chatbot, you may say that, oh, there is nothing very great about a chatbot. Probably anybody could build it, which is true. Anybody could build a chatbot. But what we are offering with our contact center AI is a chatbot which is highly contextualized. So that chatbot is actually connecting to your internal systems which you may have in the back end. Think about, let's say you have EHR system, which you need to connect with the chatbot in order to ask certain questions or respond to a certain questions. You want the chatbot to go through a series of FAQs which are important before you actually start giving any responses to your prospective patient who's coming through a phone call or through the chatbot. So we enable those integrations on the back end so that our contact center AI can actually go through these different systems within your backend and then come back and give that contextualized response to the patient who is asking those questions. So again, it's all about how we are integrating with your systems in order to make this possible. And again, this is going to keep historic information stored. It's going to keep the logging information stored so that it enables you to kind of think about how you can improve those conversations moving forward. And before I go to the next example, a good example or a good use case for a chatbot or a contact center AI is also for our customers or for our customers who are in the payer space. Think about the Blue Cross Blue Shields of the world, the Anthems of the world, who actually want to provide better member experience. So if I am a member who's shopping for medical insurance and I have questions around my medical plan, or if I want to compare a few different plans, how would I do it, right? I mean, either I go to the website and I search for those different plans and read through it, or I call the customer care, wait for a human to respond to it. The other way could be that you are actually enabling all of that through contact center AI and chatbot so that as a member, I can actually ask questions which are very pointed. So I could probably ask a question saying that, hey, as part of my medical plan uh, is the instrument for monitoring my diabetes going to be included or not? If it's going to be included, what is going to be my pay? What is going to be my copay which I have to pay? So things like that, right? That those conversations are going to get enabled when you are using something like a conversational virtual agent or CCAI, which I spoke about. Moving on to the next use case which we have, it's with CHA. CHA is a Harvard affiliated system with 2 acute care hospitals, 13 community care centers, and about 125,000 primary care patients. CHA was an early adopter of Epic EHR, and they have about 15 years of experience with the platform. Today, CHA uses HIPAA compliant Google Meet video conferencing capabilities, which are integrated with Epic so that they can provide telehealth to their patients. Again, back to the example I pointed in the previous slide, enabling the telehealth scenarios by connecting with the EHR which you may have today so that you're providing that rich capabilities to your patients so that they have more than one avenue of actually receiving care rather than just thinking about receiving care by going to a hospital like the previous times. Moving on to the next slide, I have a couple of more use cases which I feel are pretty interesting. In the interest of time, I'll probably just touch about the Embry use case, which I mentioned. So what Embry is doing is Embry actually had created models which helped them to predict sepsis. Previously, using Google Cloud, Emory had this issue where they had this model, but it was taking them a lot of time to actually train that model because the amount of data they had, which was required to train the model, was huge. And once the model was trained, the whole repetitive process of taking the new data, feeding it back to the model, so that you're enabling the training to be better and increasing the accuracy of the prediction as the model becomes mature was becoming troublesome for them just because the data was huge and it required a lot of compute capability. So Google Cloud and Emory decided to work together. We kind of joined hands and we came up with a solution for Emory, which actually helps them to predict sepsis about 4 to 6 hours early with about 85% accuracy. This has been a great success between Emory University and Google Cloud. What Emory did was they actually took that model, they deployed that model on Google Cloud, and they now use the capability and the computability of Google Cloud, and they enable the continuous learning of that sepsis prediction model because they now don't have to worry about the amount of data coming in, the amount of compute power required, and how the data needs to be used in order to train the model in a better way. All what they're focused is that what they need to do with the model itself and what needs to be done in order to make the model better. But training the model and providing that compute capability has become much simpler, and they don't have to worry about it because they're now using Google Cloud's scale in order to do that. And I have another example about Charters Healthcare, which was around how Charters Healthcare was able to actually provide better healthcare by reducing the time required by their physicians to reach their EHR records by using Chrome desktops. I won't go into the detail of that, but just think about the ability to give your physicians. So one of the things which we kind of constantly come about is that when we're talking to providers, like you have physicians and you have your doctors which are going from one room to the other, right? And when they go from one room to the other, they have to actually log into their device again when they're going from one place to the other place. Now, doing that several times in a day is not going to be easy because you're going to be logging in again, and then you are more than likely going to lose the session which you had, which you previously logged in when you were in a different room. How do you make that easy for physicians so that when they have this mobility, when they're going from one place to the other, they can still retain their session, they can still retain at what point they were in their EHR system, for example, or at what point are in any other application which they were using, and reducing the time for them to spend into logging into a certain device so that they can rather focus on providing care to their customers than spending time on technology. So the Charters Healthcare actually use case actually does that by using Chrome devices and a number of other services which we have. Again, I'll share the case study, and it'll be a good read for all of you to get a better idea about it. Moving on to the next slide, this is just showing the rich ecosystem which we have and the organizations which we have worked with. I highlighted the CHA example. Mayo Clinic is a big partner with Google Cloud, and we are doing a lot of unique innovations along with Mayo Clinic. There is a bunch of information available on our website around the Mayo Clinic collaboration, which Google Cloud has. In the interest of time, I'm going to skip this slide and focus on the next one. Again, this is showing the ecosystem of partners which we work with. So whenever we are positioning or whenever we are engaging with you on unique use cases, more than likely we will be bringing in a partner with us in order to help you solve the problem and implement the problem. We have a lot of partners in the ecosystem. Some of the top ones are highlighted in the slide, but as the Google philosophy is that we would be flexible enough to work with any partner of your choice if that's what you decide to do. But at all points of our engagement, we would be engaged from a Google Cloud perspective, bring in solution architects, bring in customer engineers, bring in technical account managers so that we can ensure that you're getting the best guidance, both in terms of design architecture, but also in terms of operational implementation so that you as the customer is focusing on what is important for your business, which is providing better healthcare, and we worrying about the underlying infrastructure and the solution which is required to make that possible. I know we are out of time. I just wanted to touch upon the healthcare data engine, which is a very new service which we have launched on Google Cloud specific to healthcare. Uh, Healthcare Data Engine builds on and extends the core capabilities of Google Cloud Healthcare API to make healthcare data more useful by enabling interoperable longitudinal records of patient data. Healthcare Data Engine can map over 90% of HL7 messages to FHIR across leading EHRs out of the box, enabling a path to better care while reducing the total cost of ownership. The main takeaway I want you guys to take from this is that healthcare data engine is going to work with you in your scenarios where you have data sitting in different systems and you want to bring those different data from different systems into a single data warehouse or into a single entity converted into FHIR so that you can run insights on top of it. One of the biggest challenges which we see almost on a daily basis when we are talking to providers or payers like yourselves is that you guys have a lot of data. The data is usually sitting in different systems. It's probably not talking to each other. The data warehouse systems which we have are probably not built to scale so that they can actually start running analytics on demand or give you access to analytics in near real time. And the idea of normalizing the healthcare data, right? I mean, taking the data from these different systems, normalizing it, loading it into a central repository or a data warehouse is a very cumbersome and a tedious process. We are trying to reduce that burden which you might have around the whole normalization process and the transformation process of that data with healthcare data engine. We want to do all of that in an automated fashion for you using healthcare data engine so that once the data has been transformed, has been mapped into Fire, it is in that common language. Then on top of that, you can run your analytics, you can run any business logic on top of that so that you can provide better patient care, provide quicker care, and also you are able to provide better insight into how the care which you give to your patients can be improved over a period of time. There are a variety of use cases when it comes to healthcare data engine, depending upon if you're a provider or a payer. Some of the top use cases are highlighted in the slide, which I'm currently showing. Population health is a big one. Patient and member 360, which is basically giving you the ability to view the longitudinal patient record across the different systems and then providing some predictions on top of that or creating risk scores on top of that is one use case which we are working with a number of providers with. The possibility is limitless, right? Once you have your data which is transformed and available in a central place, you can actually run the Google Analytics, the AI and the ML on top of that to run whatever use case you might have in mind and open those art of possible kind of scenarios which were not possible before. So we want to kind of enable you to do that so that you are focusing on what is important for you rather than working on the infrastructure required to normalize the data, to transform the data, and to run your data warehouse. With that, I think I'm at the end of my slide. It was a little bit short time to cover healthcare data engine, but I would be happy to share some links with all of you